Good afternoon, guests, and thank you for joining us after the lunch. We're very honored to be sitting here in front of you today. You'll notice that they seated our panel quite strategically. We have the operators and we have the owners, which has set us up for a fiery debate that we have this afternoon, with the age-old debate of the role of our owners and the role of the operators. And I think we can all attest that the dynamism has changed quite a bit. 20 years ago, a lot of the power sat in the hands of the big brands, of the operators. And today, when we're in our second cycle, a lot of the HMAs are coming up for renewal. Owners are becoming a lot more independent. Owners are becoming a lot more educated. They think they can run the businesses themselves. Sometimes they can. How are we going to navigate the new landscape between the relationship of the owners and the operators, especially when it comes to navigating contracts, so many of them that are up for renewal at the moment? And I want to start with Ajay. What the MC did not tell us was that Ajay was the GM of an Oberoi at the age of 31, which is virtually unheard of, one of the top luxury brands. So I think you've had your foot in both worlds, right? You've been an operator.
Yes.
And you can give us a good starting point of what life looked back a few years ago, 80s, 90s, and how the landscape looks today.
Thank you, Leanne. I don't think it's changed all that much. I think owners today have many more choices to make. Perhaps those choices were not available 10, 20, 30 years ago. At the end of the day, in a lot of cases, the owner does know better than the operator in that local market, is better connected, is better equipped, and knows the local sensitivities and sensibilities much, much, much more. So there are huge number of choices to make today. Now, the principle behind any business from a developer promoter's point of view is the return on investment, not purely in money matters on a short-term basis, but the valuation of the property, the image of the property, the reputation of the property. A lot of these owners come with very strong, rock-solid reputations of their own, and I think it's a bigger feeling for them that the property adds value to the name rather than take away from it. So that's I think one has to look at that philosophy. And what does an operator have to do? So here is where the operator has to change or should have changed in the last 20 years in a big way. You don't go around and say, I know it all. What do you know? You only have the money. That was at one point in time the equation. And now you say, tell me what you want. Tell me what your philosophy is in terms of doing business. Beyond just the making money, what exactly are you looking at? Short term, long term, etc., etc. And can I really add value? Am I equipped to add value? How am I equipped to add value? Is it just the distribution systems and the reservation systems, or can I go beyond that? Do I bring in strong management practices? Do I bring in integrity? Do I bring in ethics? What sort of reputation do I bring to the table? And I think it's obligatory on an operator to sort of say honestly what he can or cannot do. And if you really can't add value, it's best to shake hands over that cup of coffee and say, thank you very much. I'm really not the best person for you. So if you go in with that mentality, you can't go wrong as an operator. We have 130 odd hotels. We have more than 100 owners that we've dealt with, some over the last 30 years, some very new. But the overriding feeling remains the same. Are you bringing value to the table or not? And yes, one can't put aside the monetary angle. If you're not making money for the owner, he doesn't really need you, despite all your other qualities. Leanne?
There was a statistic that said 85% of hotels on the African continent are owned by families, right? I need that to penetrate. 85% of hotel assets are owned by families. Now, with that in mind, I'd like to pose a question to one of our people on the other side, one of the owner representatives. How do you balance a property that's possibly been with a family for a very long time? They have much more than a financial investment. There's all the other elements that go with it. How do you make sure that that owner, their heritage, their culture, their connection with that property stays alive whilst optimizing it and managing it optimally?
Do you allow me?
Go ahead.
So I believe that working with several owners and got a chance to meet with more of the operators, I believe one of the essential things that comes in the first and one of the key factors of success is alignment of goals. Right? So the shared vision between the owners and operators is very critical for achieving the financial and brand objectives. So saying so, I'm back to the question that the owners, 85%, they own their own brand or operating their own brand. How they ensure that the operator, when they will arrive, they will keep the same culture. So there's different aspects. First thing that you have to select, to spend, the owner have to spend the time and resources to select an operator that their vision and goals aligning with their own. This is a very most important thing. Secondly, there is an option of operators that you can white label the brand, that you ensure that you deliver the culture of your brand to the operator, and the operator operate your brand under a white label with your own name. And all of this depends on the market itself, that if the market will accept having a national brand to be there in the market, or it has to be or more professionally or more financially better to get an operator to manage their own hotels. So and to conclude it, this is to share the vision, to align the goals is the key. Either if you will operate your own hotel, or you will white label, or you will bring in an operator.
Shadi, at Marriott, you guys have done this pretty well, right? You've created models that have allowed an authenticity, because today's traveler is looking for authenticity. They're visiting Marrakesh, they want to experience Marrakesh, they want to experience the food, the property, the bricks and mortar needs to feel like I'm in Marrakesh. But I want the peace of mind of a big brand behind me, and I want to be able to use my loyalty points, and I want to be able to book easily. How have you guys tackled that?
No, I think it's now they've dimmed the lights and we're the session after lunch, so I'm sure we're going to lose a couple of people. So we're going to speak up to keep you awake. But you've touched on something that's very important, and to capitalize on what Mohammed said, 85% of those hotel owners, yes, they're family owners. They've been running their own business. But what we have as Marriott with 220 million loyalty members, we've got that reach. We've got that, that guest that is in, Los Angeles, that's in Kyoto, that's in Cairo, that wants to experience a lodge in Kenya. But he doesn't know those individual family names, but he does know a JW Marriott brand or a luxury collection, so they give that comfort. And we've had a great example with my colleague sitting there. We've signed our first JW Marriott lodge in Masai Mara, and it's ran by the owners. That's their business. They know how to run the hotel. We know how to fill it. And I think it's important to, whilst we put the flag and have the brand standards, and that gives comfort to the traveler, the global traveler. However, the day-to-day operations of something like a lodge in Masai Mara, they would know a lot more than. And over the last 10 years, we've raised our hand and said, some owners can do it, and they should be able to do it. They just want to have also our flag and access to those 220 million loyal members. Where the reservation comes from, it costs them less than relying on the new third-party operators or the online travel agency. So again, we need to find that line with the owners of where we add value and where they can add value, right? 10 years ago, we had 85% of our portfolio in Europe, Middle East, and Africa was managed, 15 was franchised. If you look at it today, it's flipped. In the Middle East, we're seeing more and more franchised owners are becoming more sophisticated, they understand our business more, and they want to be able, and they've got multiple properties, so it makes sense for them to have their own management companies. So yeah.
I want to, Shata, I want to ask you, in terms of the markets, where your feeder markets come from, does that have an impact on the owner-operator relationship? If I get my visitors, we've spoken about kite surfing, right? What role does a brand play in that instance? Do you need a brand, or if it's a steady market, kite surfers that keep coming, is it better to go at it on your own?
Sure. I think your questions and what the panelists have been saying touch on the fact that we are not in a traditional market anymore, whether you're in Egypt or in South Africa or Dubai for that matter. You have to explore different ways to exploit the benefits of having an operator-owner relationship. And, you know, traditionally, your operators looking for that consistency, your owners looking for the flexibility, and can these apparently contradictory positions coexist? And the answer is absolutely, they can. And it's a matter of what can the operator bring to the market. So when you're looking at different feeder markets, you mentioned the example of kite surfing. You know, you're talking about a very niche market that's looking for something very specific. You're not going to want to explore your traditional big brands. You're going to want to explore your soft brands, potentially. As an owner, you have a destination and the concept that you're offering up. Your operator, as Shadi has said before, is very good at putting heads on beds. And you marry the two and have sort of a non-traditional approach to it. And in previous conversations, we were saying, you know, since we have Shadi on the panel, that their fastest growing brands are the soft brands.
Correct.
And I think that's for a very clear reason, and it's what we're talking about here.
Siegfried, in terms of H-World, and in terms of some of the points that we've discussed, what trends have you seen in your group?
Well, let me first would like to, as well to mention something that we have discussed, and when you introduced us, saying here are the owners and here are the operators. I think it's better to talk about the partnership. And I know one of the things that we wanted to discuss is this partnership thing. Initially, and you mentioned that, AJ, 40 years, 30 years, 20 years ago, I think the operators had as well a bit of an approach. We are unique, we are special, we know everything, and you just have to sign a contract. I think many events happened over the couple of last 10 years where operators has become much more humble in their approach, if I may say that, much more open, much more listening. Initially, the contracts were set in stone. Now, people or companies are getting much more flexible. So I like to talk about partnership when it's owners and operators. I think this is the first statement. Trends, like Shadi said, in Africa, you see a lot of this families business. Families has been suffering as well over the past couple of years of the different events which happened, right? COVID has made a lot of damage to the industry, and the recovery is still, you still feel it. You still feel from a cash flow perspective, from a projection perspective, from a renovation perspective, families are suffering in order to see from where do we get the funds and how can we have a projection in order to uplift our properties, right? And I know all the suppliers are bringing amazing projects and amazing products that we all want to use, but someone has to pay that. And if, like Shadi or the other operators and the owners, if you brand the property, and we have this exercise multiple times, and the trend is as well there, family business, you put the brand on it, a premium on the average rate should be immediately visible based on the expertise, based on the reach, based, what Shadi said, on the loyalty members who are reaching all of a sudden a place in Kenya, in a resort which has been locally managed, which is invaluable and which brings money to the bottom line for the owners. So I think trend is there, much more open, adapt the brands to the destination, This is something super important, and all the operators are doing this. We are not having anymore the cookie cutter hotel, and this is a Steigenberger in Frankfurt, and we want the same in Nairobi. No, we don't want the same. We want authenticity, we want experience. The customers are looking for that, and I think all the brands are adapting very well.
So if we're talking about a partnership, and let me pose the question, Ahmed, how do you have a conversation with your operator? We're a family business. We have properties, and simply to keep our doors open during COVID, we've overextended, we've hedged. There's no way that I can possibly ever sell enough hotel rooms to get out of that debt that I went into. But I managed to keep every staff member employed. But I know that my properties need investment, right? How do you navigate your way when owners have been through a really tough time? We're looking at different circumstances. Yes, we mentioned the pandemic, but now we're looking at various political issues around the world that are impacting us. How do you have that discussion with your operator to say, well, perhaps I need this amount of investment as reserves to put aside. My property is facing dysfunction soon. How do you navigate that discussion?
I think the most important thing is to align the objectives, because it usually happens, this conflict happens because of mismatch in timing, where at times you have a very good occupancy, business are running, cash flows are optimized. You want to bring in this as much as possible. You cannot go into renovations and try to make things happen at that time. And then due to our, as we said, circumstances that happens all over the world, from devaluations in Egypt, COVID, other circumstances, instability in the political scene around us, it's tough to determine where is the best time that you enter and do it. That's the conversation that usually happens. And I think it usually, as we said before, it gets triggered when you see a risk and you start seeing that your operations will go down. I think aligning the objectives and having it at the right time, sorted out between the owners and operators, is a key thing. And as Shadi mentioned during our call, when he was mentioning the reserves and how it gets open for actual renovations, it's a key issue as well. And he mentioned that we had a discussion around that when we were discussing the contract. But again, it's a mandatory thing. And I think the most important thing is your perspective in having your asset at the most valuable position. For us as a real estate developers, we develop communities. We have thousands of units delivered. And we're tapping into the hotel industry right now, the hospitality industry. But for us, it's a value creation kind of asset. It's not a standalone business. It's seen from two different perspectives, from a hospitality perspective and from an overall real estate industry we're working at. For me, I cannot look at it in one perspective. I have to look at both. And for the second one, from a real estate perspective, it gives a lot of power for a real estate developer to have his assets at the top position in the market. That's what will trigger the conversation, and maybe Shadi will witness.
I'm cornered here. I'm sitting with three owners that are existing owners of our properties. But it's important, and I'm glad you brought this up, Ahmed, because and Siegfried touched it, we need to be pragmatic. Right?
Yes.
A lot of all the operators in the room and in every conference, we're focusing on conversions. Conversions. This is what everyone's looking for. That's what the market's after, net unit growth. Everyone's talking about the NUG. Now, for us to be able to achieve this, and thankfully we've had a huge increase in the number of conversions that we are taking, especially in developed markets in the UAE, in Europe, where there is no room to develop more, or the market does not have space to grow or build new supply. So we need to start being pragmatic. Once we go visit that property, and I ask the owner, I want this wall red. Will it add $10 to my ADR? Yes, then do it, Red. If it won't, keep it as it is. And we need to find where we need the owner to spend the money where it will come back to them. And I think all big operators are realizing this now, that the days of 40 years ago, and I'll remember my dad at Intercontinental back in the day, we know how to run this. Not anymore. It's a partnership, like Siegfried said, and we need our owners to grow our hotels, and our owners need us to fill their hotels and take care of their real estate. And the renovation plans is a great example. If we don't spend, and we're going through a renovation now with Mr. Shahata at the Sheraton Soma Bay, we had to do it. The hotel will come out after this better positioned, in a better position to charge higher ADRs and attract more clientele. So it's not us versus them. It's how can we both look after their assets together. Sorry, Sanjay.
No, that's fine. I think on the renovation part, any capital investment in a functional property, COVID or otherwise, it helps a lot if the actual management contract has certain benchmarks built into it. How often do you redo a banquet hall? So I don't come in tomorrow and say, it's been 3 years, I need to change everything out here. How often do you do the guest rooms? How often do you do public areas? So if it's already there, that these are broad benchmarks we agree to, you got a platform to go on. Secondly, if the cash flows are tight, you need to have certain clear parameters saying, I've got a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year project. We're going to do tuck. And there is clarity. As long as the cash flow is coming in and we're doing this kind of bottom line, so much money will go into the renovation. If things fall, if the bottom falls out of the bucket, it'll get postponed. So it helps if you have these things sort of clearly understood rather than leave them to ambiguity and to misunderstanding.
So if I could add something with this renovation, Ahmed mentioned a little bit about the situation in Egypt specifically, where you have a combination of factors that create what is basically a perfect storm for the relationship between owner and operator to be navigated. When you add to it the challenge of renovation with a large number of properties in that market coming around to their second cycle, it is even more critical. So in Soma Bay, we currently have 3 major renovations underway, and we're going to be going into our 4th relatively soon, one of which is the Sheraton that Shadi mentioned. It is an extremely challenging situation that tests the relationship, requires that the operator recognize the extraordinary circumstance, not just in the world market, but in the specific market, where you have loans that by the time we took out a loan in 2021, a year into the renovation, the dollar value of that loan is halved. 6 months later, it is halved again.
And everything else went up. All prices went up. So
it's the inflation is going up. Add to it the challenge of closed borders. So you can imagine trying to renovate a 326-key hotel, full renovation, without being able to import a thing. Somehow, we were able to navigate those challenges, and it was all about the operator in a very traditional brand that recognizes the need to be flexible and work around, and obviously the owner that recognizes the need to go ahead with that renovation despite the volatility in the market. And even, as Ahmed said, sometimes with very high occupancy rates, to try and renovate while the hotel is operating. And still, this is a perfect success story. We're still going through it now, but it's going very well. So it can be done.
Thank you.
So this leads me to a question that we didn't discuss, so I want to pose it to all of you. We spoke about partnerships. In South Africa, banks do not like financing hospitality assets, right? How then do I take this partnership to approach the financiers and the lenders to get the much needed money that I need to execute the renovations, the conversions that I need?
I'm happy to take this one as well.
Jump after.
So, again, it requires a very strong partnership. So, for example, whereas you would have an operator that has a property improvement plan that requires this, that, and this, and that, in certain cases with forex fluctuation, you'd have to have an agreement where we're going to phase the PIP and approach the bank as one unified front to say, this is what the property needs, where in fact the operator knows that it needs much more. That is an example. There's currently a big government subsidy that's being offered in Egypt, $1 billion subsidy. But it comes with a lot of provisos. So one of them that we're faced with is you have the subsidy at less than half of the prime lending rate, but you have to spend it within 12 to 16 months. So you can imagine the challenge of designing the project, doing a mock-up room, getting it approved, rolling out the entire delivery of the project in less than 16 months. It requires a lot of teamwork, and that's an example of that.
Hospitality is never the flavor of the world as far as banks are concerned. But I think it helps a lot if there's a brand association. Banks have a higher level of comfort and reassurance. So it works both ways. We operate a lot in India, where the repayment term is just 10 years, 2 years. It's ridiculous. And even then, banks are not so keen to lend to hotel ventures. But the brand and the valuation, the added valuation that the brand brings to the table is certainly a help. And there is a feeling on the banking or the funding or the lending side of a certain level of stability and a certain level of standard.
One of the things I want to mention, I'm sure Mr. Marriott is the same. If you come as one of the biggest hotel companies, and our home market and our company is from China, so everyone believes we bring a lot of money to the table and invest in bricks. This is not the business model and will not be in the future the business model of the big hotel companies. We are here to manage properties and make sure to get the best benefit from an asset or from a project in order to build it to the best standard to make the most profitable out of it. This is the heart of our business. Now you have big companies who have different resources and different ways of getting money.
Right.
Yes, we have as well ways of getting money, but then it depends the country. And then it depends the governance, and then it depends the owner. So many people depend on that, but we cannot say that hotel operators are giving money to any project to build it. No, it will not happen. But we have ways of helping, ways of supporting, partnership again. We have done JVs in different continents in order to help push a project. We have put many millions of euros into projects where there is a multiple number of hotels coming up. But for a single hotel, I would hardly doubt that this happened.
That's very interesting. I think, what is the role in, if you look at the different regions that we operate in, South Africa, Egypt, UAE, Europe, what is the role of, you touched on government and the role that government plays in the subsidies that are available. What voice do hospitality asset owners and the brands have with government in your regions? Are they noticed? Are they heard? Are they seen? Are they valued?
I believe,
I plead
yes.
the fifth.
It's, yes. Yes, it is, and especially it's based on the owners. If they have a record of real estate, it depends on his land bank. If several projects has done before or not. So from here, plus accredited or certified visibility study on the ROI of what they're going to invest. Yes, this is you can influence the government, and it's based as well. Some governments have a direction sometimes that they are directing now for a hospitality sector. So they are supporting the sector. They are giving lands. They are revenue shares some of the lands to with the owners. So they are supporting, and yes, there is a voice can be heard for sure for the hospitality. Because it attracts foreigners, attracts tourists. It's very good for the GDP. It's very good for the foreign currency in any country.
And job creation. In South Africa, some people vary with the stats, but for every 12 international visitors who reach our shores, 1 permanent job is created. And we have a country with massive unemployment. So the most logical sense makes for tourism and investment within tourism. Many of you on the panel have been general managers in your careers, right? What is the role of the general manager in navigating the relationship between the owner and the operator? Who does he represent? Who does the general manager represent?
He represents the hotel and the business. And that needs to be clear. And he should be made to feel like the owner of the property. Works for everyone. Works for the owner, works for the operator. He must represent his business. Of course, he's got to play the bonding factor very positively between the owner and the operator. But I think if you have a mature operator and if you have a mature owner, and it's not such an easy combination, but if you do, it works very well because the whole thing is aligned towards pushing the business forward and taking the business forward.
Sorry, Secretary.
Lots go.
So I was working as a GM for a local gentleman in the UAE, very proud of his property. And he considered to welcome his people or the guests at his home. A GM needs to understand and needs to know who is the owner. He needs to know what is the expectations from the owner. Is it an independent owner or is it an institutional owner? It's two different things. And you as hotel company need to select the GM who is working with the specific owner depending the expectations the owners have. So in that case, I would say maybe 60 owner, 40 operator. You are still a businessman. You need to make sure that your asset is optimizing on many aspects. Your KPI is not only one, is not only money, you have many. But the key is know the owner, know his expectations. The brand is a must to represent, but it should not go as well. And I've seen many GMs, and we as company has to make sure that the GM knows he is managing the owner's money. The owner's money, not the hotel operator money. Right? So this is somehow which I try to make understand to all the GMs. We are here to work for the best of the owner, trying to maximize the experience for the guests, making sure the staff is happy, but we are managing owners' money and assets.
I love that. I mean, the fact that there's no cookie-cutter approach, and you really have to make sure that that appointment of the GM, 100%, I like that. Mohammed, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, just echoing what you said, that the GM is working for both, working with the owners and working for the operators. And yes, the owners have a say, for sure, for the general manager based on their vision and the quality they are looking for with this operator. Yes, still, yet the operator has the values. The operators, there is a brand standards. However, within the same brand standards, under the umbrella of these brand standards, there are several aspects of the game that it could be like you hire this, you lower that. So based on your vision of the owner and which direction, so this is when we hire the general manager. And based on the vision we're looking for. At the same time, for the owner, from the owner perspective, now some of the owners, and this is something that's really become very important, that the owners should either hire an asset management company to look after their hotels, to ensure that they are working as well as a moderator between the owners and the general manager or the operator, or they create their own hospitality division with hoteliers expertise so they can run the operator and having people talking the same language when it comes to business and operational perspective.
I'd like to move on to, again, partnerships. But as owners and as operators, what level of reporting do you as owners want to see that you are perhaps not currently seeing? Or are you happy as owners with the level of reporting that comes from your operators?
No, we're not happy.
He was happy. No, just kidding.
I think, honestly, I think that's the easiest part of the relationship. If you're transparent, make everything available. Where's the problem? What is it that we have to hide? And it's incumbent on the operator, if he makes a mistake, to say, I made a mistake. And this is what I'm doing to fix it. But really, if you try to say, I should not be sharing this, or I should not be sharing that, hell, he owns the property.
Yeah. That's his money. He
Give
built
him
it.
everything, whatever they want, and more. It's easier, much easier that way.
Now, I think it's reporting is something that we take very seriously. Now, we have been in the business of hotels for over 95 years now. We've got over 9,000 hotels operating, and we have been doing this for a very long time, whether it's franchised, whether it's managed. Now, there needs to be this trust factor. We sit with the owner once a month. We share with him everything that we're doing, and we forecast. And again, this is an open relationship, right? It's not that we're hiding. Owners always sometimes they forget that our fees are based on percentages. So it's in our interest to make more money. The more money we make the owner, the more we make as fees, right? However, I always give an example of, I'm not going to say which part of the world. An owner came to us and said, I'm going to do a better job than you. And we're like, fine, here are the keys. In less than 1 year, owner was back and saying, you know what, no, let's figure out a way to get you back in. And I'm not saying this, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this to say we do it better or we don't. But it's simply, we have been doing it for so long. We have the keys. We know what it takes to run a hotel efficiently and achieve that bottom line. There's a saying in Egypt, and there's a lot of people from Egypt here, leave the bread to the baker. That's what we do. We know what hotels are, and we know how to put heads on beds. Now, on a monthly basis, bi-weekly, nothing stops the owner from coming into the hotel to have a chat with the GM. But the more you get involved, the more you handcuff an operator, we'll tell you, run it yourself. Use our systems, but run it yourself. And there needs to be that trust relationship to
I believe this as well, as you have said, that the majority of the fees is coming through a percentage of the revenue. And this is as well an area that we always push for to generate more profit, because at the end, the operators, they have their own brand standards that they should spend more expense to get their brand standards, and we do care about the net profit. So here as well, this is a push for the operator to start getting more profit. Yes, we generate revenue, but the cash flow or the cash down, that should be matching with the increase of the revenue. And as Chad said, that it's transparency, the communication, the open communication with the brand, with the corporate office. Their involvement is very important, because by the end, the GM is representing the brand, but still the corporate involvement is very important to keep ensuring that the general manager is doing the right thing with the vision, with the brand standard, based on the owner's guidelines or the influence.
There is a level of apprehension and a level of suspicion and a level of a stranger coming to run your hotel. And in cases of family-run hotels, even more so, because you've done it for a generation or two, and now you say, this joker is going to come along and tell us what to do, or do it differently. There is also the fact that things will go wrong in hotels. The hotels are run by people. People make mistakes. People will steal. People will misappropriate. People will make genuine mistakes, not sometimes willingly, sometimes unwillingly. The higher the level of transparency, the better it is. And I think the key is that when things do go wrong, you say, you know what, we made a blunder, but we're fixing it. And if the owner's lost money because you made the blunder, you say, I'll make up for it. You can't just say, I made a mistake, say, what are you doing about it? So those are critical factors if you need to grow as an operator.
And I think one of the points that you mentioned is the transparency. And the other point for owners, I think, which is key, is the reachability and the accessibility of the decision maker. Right? I think this is one of the keys, that you speak to your GM, and the GM has a certain authority, but you have always a person who is then the decision maker. And we all know The sun is there, and one day the rain is coming, that's for sure. And you still need to continue talking and able to take the phone. Initially it was mails, now it's WhatsApps that I'm sure you get and I get. So the communication is direct. And you have just as operator to serve not only the guests, but as well the owner if he needs.
And sorry,
No,
adding on that as well, that the operators experienced the changing the owner of some of the hotels, and I believe that you see that the involvement of the owners at some extent is very useful for the brand. Either it's the same brand, but when it comes with a different owner, it's different. So this is as well, yes, some owners that we do have a moderate autonomy on the operator, but all of this is pushing the operator for a better financial, a better towards the successful results. Not to a point that we control or manage the hotel, but we are some of the owners that pushing for just better results and for successful. And this can be seen for when you change owners. Yes, you can definitely see that some owners investing in their assets, increasing their asset value, and they would love to see their hotels build a legacy for their hotels.
If just may, there's two myths.
He was talking to us.
Shadi,
right?
you mentioned that. You mentioned that before. I think the operator will not ask you anymore to paint a wall in red if there is no additional revenue or profit to the asset. I don't think that it's happened anymore. And if yes, the owner should really question that. Second is, the operator is taking all my money and profits away. This is not true, if I may say very objectively. Any international brand you are taking from a clothes perspective, anything, you pay always a premium. You want to get the brand, you want the international brand. And if you want to upgrade it, our fees in overall, it never exceed more than a single-digit percentage. Never. So the most of the profit always goes to the owner.
Correct.
That's for sure. So we just take a slightly piece of the additional business and the revenue we are generating.
Gentlemen, do you see a future for different financial and remuneration models between owners and operators?
Get paid in gold? No, I think, the industry is already going through a shift, right? The days of 3 and 10 are gone, right? You're seeing more creative ways of structuring a management agreement. Now, it takes a while for big, and I speak on behalf of Marriott. We're a very big organization now. For us to move into a certain direction after operating for a very long time in a specific region takes us a little bit of time. It's not a no, it's not a yes, and it's the same thing with the financing question, right? It's the chicken or the egg. I always say this. Do we put more hotels in without getting financing, or the banks will see the tourism going up, then they're going to give? Someone's going to give in first. But when it comes to structuring management agreements, I really think we need to end up on a win-win situation. The perception of operators in the last couple of years with the rise of asset managers, with all due respect to obviously all the people in the field, is the operator just gets money by turning on the lights. We do a lot more than that. And there needs to be, I mentioned earlier, our fees are percentage-based, but it's also, we're happy to look at creative ways. The more money you make, the more money the operator makes. Now, in more mature markets, operators will have more comfort putting in some skin in the game, yes, simply because they know from a security standpoint, from a currency fluctuation standpoint. Yes. Luckily we say this in Egypt, but as operators, we're all enjoying, a lot of the revenue that goes into hotels is approximately 80% is foreign currency. So for now, it's still okay. If something changes and we're out of pocket, whether through key money, whether through a joint venture, and we cannot recuperate this money back, it's a problem. The value of our companies is not in real estate. We don't own anything. We don't own the buildings. we honor management agreements, and that's that stock price that you see. And for us, we're a lot more fragile when COVID hit. All the operators that are asset light got hurt. Owners got hurt too, don't get me wrong, but there's still that value of the real estate that has an up kind of lift of 20, 30% because of that international flag on top of it versus, I hope I covered that, I don't know what you think.
It's business, it's commerce. The relationship is built on business. It's built on commercial principles. The owner is the king. There's no doubt about it. He has to make his choices. So yes, you'll see plenty of permutations, combinations coming up. And operators will need to be that much more agile, that much more flexible, that much more understanding.
So if we were to have an owner sitting in the audience now, and each one of you had to pitch for the business, what are your USPs? What should the ideal operator bring to the table for an owner?
Besides my pretty face? I'm just kidding.
Leave the bread to the baker.
Yes.
Shadi, you want to start?
Oh. I think, we work very closely with our owners, and it's all about partnerships. A lot of our new business actually comes from existing partners, right? On the stage, we have a great example, right? Soma Bay, we have a Sheraton there that's been operating, it's undergoing a renovation. We're looking at extending that partnership. We get owners come back to you when they're happy with the way you run their business, right? And again, it's important that we spend a lot of time getting it right in the beginning, in the contracts, in the feasibility study, in the performers, making sure we're really putting a strong infrastructure and a strong base, because we're talking about a 25-year relationship, right? It's not... and then they realize, okay, now there is a value add in these operators, they know what they're doing, I want to do more. And this is what we capitalize on.
If I just may add to what Shadi said, it's a partnership. You need to give the operator the chance to listen, whatever he has to offer and what are his USPs. Right? We have different operators in the spectrum. Every one has his different USP, which is matching the project and the owner's vision. We have great examples in Egypt, right? Became the second biggest brand in Egypt. The connection with the German feeder market as being the biggest German brand works very well with resorts in Egypt. It's a lower hanging fruit. If your project is focusing on this feeder market, then you should consider. If it's in another market where Marriott or other brands are better, listen, see what they have to do and what they have to offer you. But consider every operator. We have all great people working. One of the biggest mistake I see in projects, that operators are coming too late to the project. This should be avoided if possible. And it's not that the operator is taking technical service fee from an owner. He is really adding huge benefit in terms of cost saving, time saving, having an efficient hotel, back of the house design, which is always neglected. If you build a project, please bring an experienced operator with you. He will save you a lot of time and a lot of money.
I actually agree with that. Sorry, Ajay, I'll just add to what you're saying. Obviously, on an operational level, what you were saying, Mohammed, is very valid. The owner is always looking at bottom line, and it doesn't matter how good your top line is. If your bottom line is not looking good, I have a problem with the operator. Siegfried, what you said is, I believe, very valid, that having an operator involved quite early on, the right kind of owner and the right kind of operator combination will give you the best results. We've had it many times with properties that we in fact had gone the other direction, where we did not want an operator involved, and then decided to change direction and found ourselves in much better hands. in terms of technical services. Obviously, it's a double-edged sword. It could go both ways, but definitely, and yani, looking at it on a more macro scale, the Egyptian market offers now a playground for so many new keys. When you look at the history of the number of keys in Egypt, there is a very big drive from government to increase keys. We were at about 200,000 keys in 2010. In 2022, we were still at about that same number. From 22 to 24, we've jumped dramatically. And we're, I think, at about 220,000 now. The government is pushing for doubling that number in the next 4 or 5 years. So the opportunity for new engagements between owner and operator, starting from scratch, is there. The funding is there. The owners are there. It's becoming a much more mature market. And all the big players are there in terms of operators as well. So it's time to play.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience for the esteemed panel?
You're sleeping from lunch, I told you.
All those cobs. This is your opportunity to learn from the best on stage. We have a question over there.
Can you please give us your name and where do you work?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rachel Tikriti, founder of Waro. My question is about innovation. Of course, it's the most popular topic after sustainability. I'd like to hear from each one of the gentlemen on stage. How do you think we can innovate, like as operators, as owner, as like what's it called? Sorry, hotel owners and hospitality. What's innovation? And I'm really looking forward to hearing different answers. Thank you.
Innovation.
Innovation or renovation?
Innovation.
Innovation about the sustainability. This is what we heard, right?
Innovation, is that the question?
Innovation.
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 What do you say?
Ahmed?
To me, I think innovation is much more connected with the terms of technology and digitization, and I think having that part in mind while designing hotels and understanding trends is very much important. Right now, I hear about lots of trends being focused on security, experience-based data analytics that can determine how frequent guests will be asking for certain services, asking for concierge services, having a reservation in a certain kind of restaurants, going into certain kind of adventures, trips. But these types of data and analytics will shape the industry again. For me, as an example, having the ability to go into another country, reserving a room, asking for lots of deliveries, buying things online, getting everything's delivered and dropped in the hotel. I don't know how people are handling this. It's a new trend that we're seeing. I get like 10 boxes in my room. If my wife is here, she will hear this. She just drops everything in the room.
Traveling.
I don't know how you handle this type of deliveries, but I think technology is changing a lot. It will impact how we deal with guests, and it will shape the design of the hotel again. It's more of an experience-based that we are looking for in every single asset that we do. So I think this is very important to take care of and take care within the upcoming assets. Yeah.
Some of the hotels in Vegas have their own postal codes for deliveries, right? So that's the future. We have one more question from the audience.
Yes, right here.
There we go.
Sir, please
Sorry.
introduce yourself.
Thank you, Omar. Charles Constantine from Gutmann Group. We are in building envelope and facades and lighting for all kinds of buildings. My question is, based on my humble experience in air conditioning business and building business and sustainability in terms of building materials and industrial engineering, building envelope is very, very important for hoteliers. Whether you are a property owner or, an operator. And it makes a big difference for the general manager to manage his cost or her cost at the end of the year. Therefore, EBITDA and so on and so forth. Because sustainability, the cost of power and the humidity issues, rain and so on and so forth. How much importance do you put to this topic when you manage a property? Thank you.
I'll give you an honest and a practical answer. It's cost benefit. If I see a benefit in the near term, let's say 5 years, I'll go for it. If I don't, I'll leave it to philosophy and theory.
I could add to that as well. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Ajay. It is cost benefit, and it also depends on where you are. You know, there are certain jurisdictions, most of the jurisdictions now, sustainability is no longer an option. It must be even operator standards now included. Statutory requirements require it; they demand it. However, there are certain aspects of a building envelope that are not statutory requirements, and it depends on where you are. It becomes a cost-benefit analysis. It depends on the climate that you're in, whether it's technically required, whether it's required in terms of comfort or not. So it really depends.
And I think it's very much relying on the development within the country itself. Yani if the building materials and sustainable practices are much matured in the country you're working in, I think it varies a lot. It gives you the opportunity to lower a little bit the cost-benefit analysis ratio.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I think
We can do one more if we keep it down to 60 seconds so we don't go too far behind schedule.
Okay. No.
Well, the audience needs to listen to you, sir.
If you can just introduce yourself, please. Sure. Thank you.
My name is Imran. I am a developer based in Zanzibar. So, coming from Africa, with all you big guys on the stage, let me take this opportunity. As a developer who is working on a model where we are selling units and then operating for an ROI, with operators on the stage and developers on the stage, Zanzibar as a market, what kind of soft brand, where would I start? And how would that look like? And what is kind of the best way to start? Up to now, we haven't kind of put an operator in. And
I'll give you my card later.
so I'm also going to give you my card.
No, that needs, I think, a session by itself. But you ask a very good question, and I think it's the best question that we've had, with all respect to all other questions, because you asked what's next, and Siegfried mentioned, the best projects that we are all part of, even the owners, are when we do it right from the beginning. You do your feasibility study, you get a land valuation, right? You do proper feasibility study, market and financial. You identify how much money can you raise, how much money can you finance. Goes back to financing in Africa. And based on the result of that study, then you decide, all right, do I do branded residences only? Do I do a hotel and branded residences to be able to attract the buyers buying these units and giving them to the operator to operate it? So you've got all these different models, but it all starts by doing the work first. And let the numbers decide, not the ego, not the expectations, and not the government's initiatives. Because at the end of the day, it's your money, it's your land. If you're not happy with that decision, it's a bigger problem.
Good to begin with a feasibility study, not done by a hotel operator.
Agreed. Yeah. We don't do any.
Yes. That's why I said I'll give you my card.
And one of the things is, don't underestimate, if you are a first-time developer, the operator knowledge about supporting and helping you. So have really an open mind. The operators, I don't know how many brands you have, but we have 20 plus, 30 plus brands. We can fit in different projects and different needs. I give you my card as well.
You're in for a good deal, sir.
That's why it was an important question, yes.
I'd like to thank all of you. We have to wrap up now. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I hope you've learned a lot from this afternoon's session. Thank you.
All right.